The Video Creator Show is brought to you by VidChops.com, an editing service that takes the burden of editing off your back. Check out VidChops.com to see how you can save yourself time while taking your YouTube channel to the next level. Today, I am speaking with Sabrina Kuhn, a lifestyle YouTuber who covers everything from clothing hauls to veganism. Her channel, that shares her name, has 142,000 subscribers and over 6 million total channel views. Sabrina, how are you doing today?
I'm doing so good, Grant. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I'm excited to be speaking with you. So the first thing, why did you start your YouTube channel? This is kind of a generic question I like to ask people because it kind of gives me an idea of their mindset and their overall goals. So what got you into YouTube in the first place?
Yeah, this is a really popular question. This and how much money do you make? I get that a lot. But I grew up really loving anything to do with videography, photography, music, and I've always been a creative. So I grew up watching YouTube. I'm a Generation Z baby. I was born in 2003, so like I'm in the era of YouTube. And I always wanted to do it, like I had this inner calling, like why don't I just, do it? It's fun. I didn't have any intention of doing it, as a job or monetizing. I never even knew the concept of monetization or that you could even make money. So I just started because I loved editing. I was very creative and it was like a hobby. So that's how I got started. I was only probably 10 or 12 when I started. I'm 19 now.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, what was that like starting super young? I think a lot of people, they tend to get into YouTube maybe in their teenage years, but generally, late teens, early 20s, I think is, I got into YouTube when I was 22.
Wow.
So, I think youth is usually on your side when starting YouTube. But what was that like being a kid and kind of, some of your earlier videos, they have millions of views. You were collaborating with Pink Sparkles, who is also a big YouTuber. I guess, so what was it like being that young and also collaborating with a big YouTuber like that?
It was very overwhelming at times. I'm an only child, so I had a lot of free time on my hands. And I just loved talking to the camera, so it was a pastime for me, and I felt like I could connect to people. I come from a pretty conservative community, and the concept of social media to a lot of people in my community, because I am Armenian, is a little bit foreign. People don't really understand the world of social media, and they don't sometimes take you very seriously, especially when you're young. I was never really taken seriously when I was young. It was hard to be taken seriously, and because I came across as very, witty and comedic and sarcastic, which was all real, but I also did that for a reason because I wanted to attract people and I didn't want to be boring. Like, I'm not like that 24/7. It's hard to be cynical and funny and, humorous all the time. But I think that was a little bit of my challenge because I had like a funny, nonchalant personality and I was so young, people really didn't take me seriously. With the exception of a few people that saw that there was something in me. But yeah, it's not easy to be taken seriously when you're 10 years old or 12 years old or 14 and posting videos on YouTube. And I kind of became a target for a little bit of bullying, which is really normal. Like, I feel like any teenager, goes through that. But then you put that into the mix where you're getting like millions of views on YouTube and then people are not being the nicest. But yeah. I wouldn't take it back, though. It was all a learning experience, and I grew a lot from, doing collaborations and working with different people and gaining so much knowledge from people who are more experienced than I am, for sure.
So speaking of collaborations, I don't want to use the word strategy. Obviously, you legitimately bonded with these other YouTubers and worked together on a personal level as well. But how did you get to know Pink Sparkles and these other YouTubers who you work with? Because collaborating is a very important part of YouTube. It's a legitimate way to grow. It's a legitimate way to network. So I guess how did these connections for you come about?
Right. Networking is so important, and I didn't really understand the full aspect of networking and building connections until recently, to be quite honest. And it really started because I started posting videos on YouTube. And at that time, there was another YouTuber. I won't name her name just in case she doesn't want to be mentioned, but I was kind of scouted a little bit. And through that YouTuber, she introduced me to the YouTube community, and I was able to form connections with other YouTubers such as Samantha, like who is her user is Pink Sparkles, and she's also a fellow Canadian. I believe she's from Saskatchewan. I'm from Ontario, Toronto, so everything is in the States. When it comes to
Yeah.
social media, it seems now I feel like it's branching out more to Europe and to Canada and other countries, but at that time it was very based in the States, Los Angeles, California. And basically I was scouted, and then through that individual who found me on YouTube and saw that I was, I guess, passionate, and she saw potential in me, she connected me with connected me to other social media influencers, and then through that I kind of just started building collaborations.
Right on. Okay, so it was like somebody reached out to you essentially and was
Yes.
like, "Hey, here's an in, and here's a way to contact a bunch of other really cool people in the space." That's kind of the. Is that a correct summary?
I mean, it's a very, very brief summary, but
Yeah, yeah.
I was featured on her channel and she had a substantial amount of subscribers. And so I first collaborated with her. I was on her channel, and kind of like through that shout out that I received on her platforms, I got a lot of traffic to my social media pages. And then because of that traffic, I had the opportunity to collaborate with other influencers, because influencers are not going to take someone with a very small amount of subscribers seriously, to be let's be quite frank. So once you've built a certain amount of followers, people start being like, "Oh, why are people following her? Let's do something." So I give credit to that individual so much, because my microphone just fell.
You're good. You're good.
Yeah, because of her, I got introduced to these influencers, and she gave me the platform to be on her channel. So I give her so much credit. Again, I won't name names, but so much credit goes out to her. She knows who she is if she's ever listening to this, but I appreciate it. I'm not in contact with her anymore for personal reasons, but I give her, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. So
Mm-hmm. Sure. So you get all this kind of publicity from collaborating with this person, and then with that influx of views and popularity, like, did you have a strategy going into it? Like, okay, I know that more people are going to be watching right now. Did you decide to post certain kinds of content? Can you kind of walk us through what you were thinking there?
sure. Can I be quite frank? I wasn't thinking because I was like 12. So I
Mm,
was not thinking half the time about strategy, because I did not have the capacity to understand what I could do with my platform at that time in terms of business. I was, again, very much focused on the artistic side, the creative side. I was more concerned about, like, again, editing, the ideas and everything of that nature, not really brand deals or business partnerships or sponsorships. I didn't fully grasp that at that time. Um, so I didn't expect to get, a following at all. I thought, okay, like, I'm collaborating with her, I'm on her platform, not necessarily I'm gonna accumulate followers. There's lots of people who get shout outs or are featured, but that's where it ends. But I guess people liked me, and I had charisma, so they started following me and were curious. There was a huge influx of subscribers and support. It was overwhelming. Fan pages, fan art. Picture I'm like a 12-year-old, 13-year-old girl, like, confused. What's going on here? I just
mm-hmm,
was
mm-hmm.
posting videos for fun, and then suddenly there's like thousands of people who are making fan art. Or sometimes I'd get stopped if I was in public. If I was at a mall, there would be like a group of girls my age run up to me screaming Sabrina. So I was
Oh, that's
like
awesome.
very I was a little bit disoriented, but it was exciting. And I didn't really have a strategy. My strategy was just being myself. I was just myself. Whatever I felt like doing, I did. I started with beauty videos. because I always had a passion for makeup. I loved makeup. I would sneak into my mom's room and steal her makeup when I was a child and then go put on makeup when I wasn't allowed to. I would wear makeup to school, and I went to a private school where makeup is a no-no. So the teachers would be a little bit frustrated with that.
You
So,
weren't allowed to wear makeup at school?
no.
Seems like a weird rule.
Oh, that's nothing. We have a lot of very weird rules. I come from a very conservative community, so things like beauty related, makeup, hair, nails, were very conservative when it comes to that. Now it's not the same, but before it was. So I kind of broke a little bit of the stereotypes in my community just by existing. So I think that was enough strategy for me at the time.
So do you feel like your YouTube channel is kind of like a counterculture or something to the culture that you grew up in, just in the sense that like you're sharing kind of hair and
Absolutely.
makeup and I mean it seems like whatever your school didn't want you to do, you are basically posting that on your YouTube
That's
channel. Like, so
exactly
was that an
right.
inspiration for you?
That's exactly right. It was. I felt this like rebellion a little bit because I was like,
Hell
you know
yeah.
what? You're telling me that I can't do this, that I can't do that. It's making me want to do it even more. So, and it wasn't, there's nothing wrong with makeup. Like, there's nothing wrong with makeup fashion and being a little bit over the top, dramatic. But again, when you come from a community where you have to behave in a certain way, and I'm not saying this for everyone, it's not generalized statement, but my school specifically and my community, the Armenian community is very big, and we're very modern in a lot of ways. It's not like Armenians don't like using makeup. That's further from the case. Kim Kardashian is Armenian. And like everyone that's Armenian kind of praises her because she, everyone knows about Armenian being Armenian because of Kim Kardashian. Like you say,
Hmm.
"Oh, I'm Armenian." People look at you like, "Huh? What's that?" You know Kim Kardashian? Oh, right. So, we have a lot of that in our culture. It's just when you're again 12 years old and you're going to a private school, people care about what you're doing. Your parents are worried about,
Mm.
what other people
They're
think.
nosy.
They're nosy. My parents wanted to protect me. I have very, I'm saying I had as if parents in the past tense, but I have very supportive parents, and they've always encouraged me in whatever I've wanted to do, and they've been there cheerleading me on. And I've tested them, because this is all new to them as well. Social media was very foreign to my parents. Again, they didn't understand the concept of talking to yourself in a camera and then posting that on YouTube for people to watch. So I kind of introduced all of that to them, and they were always supportive, but they definitely shielded me away a little bit because they were scared, and they wanted to protect me.
So, like now that you're 19,
Yeah.
you're officially an adult.
Yes.
Do you feel like you have new plans for your channel? Like you're not under your parents' wing anymore. You can kind of like do whatever you want. Do you feel like there's a creative surge coming, or like you have plans to post more? Like what are your kind of plans for the future now that you're a bit older now?
Right. In terms of freedom, even though I was underage, I had all the creative freedom. My parents never involved themselves or interfered with my ideas or my creativity. They never said, no, you can't do that, or, oh, no, that's not right, or I wouldn't post that if I were you. They were never like that. And because I never broke their trust, I have a very good relationship with my parents. I've never, broken their trust. We have a very open relationship. So they were just there supportive, a little bit confused, but supportive. And so, in terms of freedom, I was always free to post whatever I wanted. I didn't abuse that freedom, but I was free, in terms of my creativity. And then towards the future, I do have some plans. I've always stuck to lifestyle, fashion, beauty, as you said, but um, something that a lot of people don't know about me is I actually grew up as a music student. So I'm a former music student. I've taken, private piano lessons and vocal lessons growing up since childhood. I've been in choir. I have a lot of like performance experience since a young age. So I've always wanted to get into music and singing specifically, but I've always shied away from sharing my voice on social media because I've been kind of afraid of what people are going to think of my voice. I've been a little bit self-conscious, even though I've been told, like, oh, you sound great. Why don't you, share it with the world? I've always shied away from it, but I think now, after turning 19 and kind of maturing a little bit, I've come to the realization where whatever you do, someone is always going to have something to say, so you might as well just do whatever the hell you want, and that makes you happy. So that's what I would say is my future plan, to kind of branch out towards music, covers, and potentially original music.
Right on. Yeah, I see you just released a music video called Grandma's Hands, which is a cover, and it was
Yes.
great. Like, your voice is amazing,
Oh,
for real.
thank you. Oh
You're
my
definitely
God.
talented, and I hope you keep pursuing that.
Thank you. I really appreciate your support. Thank you.
Yeah. So, it sounds like you're looking to kind of move more into music, but you're still interested in kind of the lifestyle aspect of YouTube. I also see that you have a couple podcasts, or like interviews rather.
Yes, that's
One
right.
having to do with veganism. Another, well, maybe you could talk about that one as well. So, were these just people that you were interested in talking to? Like, you kind of wanted to pick their brain? Like, what was kind of going through your head when you had these interviews on your channel?
Sure. There's a lot of things swirling in Sabrina's head.
Sure.
um, it's something else up there, but I'm also a science student. I'm a student. I'm only 19, and I'm currently doing a kind of internship at a urology clinic. So I also love science and medical science. I love reading books. As you can see, I have a library behind me. The audio listeners are going to be like, what? But
I see
yeah,
nothing.
I see nothing. There's no library there. I love books. I'm a very avid book reader. And I actually became vegan about 5 years ago. And the people I interviewed are individuals that helped me learn about veganism. So I had come across different documentaries on Netflix, such as What the Health, Forks Over Knives, Cowspiracy. I think Cowspiracy is actually co-produced by Leonardo DiCaprio, if I'm not mistaken. So individuals that were featured in that documentary, I became very interested in their wisdom. So I started looking into, what they recommend, nutritionally speaking, and for the environment, got into their books, and I was so intrigued, and it opened so many questions. It was such a prompt for me, and I wanted to get into it more, and that's why I reached out to them. I had the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Will Tuttle. I think he has a PhD in philosophy from Berkeley, and then Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn. He's very well known, universally known in the medical field. He's from the Cleveland Clinic. So it was an honor for me to, interview these individuals. And I also, the reason why I did my first interview with Dr. Will Tuttle was actually for a school project. It wasn't initially for social media, but then I realized, oh, why don't I post this on YouTube? I already have it, might as well post it. And then it kind of became a little thing that I started doing.
Wow. So this was originally not even for YouTube. This was just for, I mean, as you just said, school. Huh.
Yes, that's right. The second one where I interviewed Dr. Esselstyn was more strictly for social media, but Dr. Will Tuttle, I interviewed, I think, 2 years ago, strictly for school. And then I realized, oh my God, this is like a full. Can I swear on this, or I'm not allowed to swear?
Go for it. Go for
This
it.
is a full ass video. Why don't I post it on YouTube? So that's what I did.
Yeah, and the like view wise, they seem to do pretty well. Like, you have 2.6 thousand views, kind of relative to your average videos. They seem to do as well, if not better, and it's probably fun for you. Especially, I don't know, maybe you share this feeling when I sit down to like talk to somebody for an interview or a podcast or whatever. It's kind of nice. You basically turn on the microphones and then you turn them off, and then you're done. Like, it's
Yes,
done. There's a kind of simplicity to it, whereas when you're filming for a video, there's like all these different
I
takes, and then you
know.
have to edit it together, and you're like, is this engaging? Blah blah blah.
I
Like
know it's so many things that it's overwhelming. I think don't people don't really fully consider how much work it can be to work on, for social media or create social media content, it's a lot of work. You don't only
Hmm.
have to be tech savvy, but if you're putting yourself out there, you need to be engaging. You have to keep yourself entertaining, and you can get very critical towards yourself. Like, am I interesting? Am I boring? Am I talking weird? Do I look funny? And you can really become, a little bit narcissistic. It's like, because you want to be
Hmm.
interesting to people, and um, yeah, you can become very critical of yourself. So I completely agree with that.
Hmm. And well, that's one weird thing too. When you're editing your own videos, it's this super, like, I don't know if this has ever happened before in
Yes.
history. Like editing a video with your face and voice, like you're looking at your own face, listening to your own voice, like in all these takes. Sometimes you're messing up, sometimes you're getting it right, but like it's such a weird sort of self-reflective process, and like all of the countless hours I've spent having to look at my own face and listen to my own voice, it's
Start
like
going
I don't know.
crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You
What
start
was that?
going crazy. You start going crazy.
Yes, yes. Very much so. It's like, oh god, I've kind of learned that if I can get away with it, I would rather pay somebody else to edit videos with me, and then I would rather get paid to edit other people's videos. I,
I
I feel
believe
like I can be more objective when I'm working for someone else.
I
Hmm.
completely relate to that. Um, it kind of drives you insane a little bit when you're watching yourself for hours and listening to your own voice. You get sick of yourself. And I think that has contributed to me being a little bit distant from social media at times. I'm a
Mm.
very, perfectionist person, and then you add editing of, video editing and looking at yourself for hours to that mix, and it's just not healthy. I completely agree with you. It's the weirdest thing ever to look into your, like, look at yourself, listen to yourself, edit yourself, and it's a little bit of a dissociating experience. Like, I feel like I have to dissociate from myself a little bit at times and then come back to myself. So I
Hmm.
absolutely resonate with what you're saying.
Yeah, it's the YouTuber's dilemma for sure. It's definitely strange.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
one th- yeah, so now I'd like to kind of shift a little bit, talk about the sponsorships you've had on your channel and just kind of like how those came about. I see you had a sponsorship with Sheen, which was a clothing company, and
Hmm.
then Zoffel. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
That's right, Zaffel.
So did they reach out to you? Did you reach out to them? And then would you be willing to kind of talk about the specifics of the sponsorships? Not so much like how much you made, but rather just sort of how it worked. Did you get paid for signups or on commission, or was it like a flat rate, or was it both?
Hmm. Sure. So I started getting into sponsorships quite early on, and sometimes you have brands that reach out to you, and you are very enthusiastic about working with them just because of, it's the first time someone's reaching out to you. I think a lot of influencers experience that, and they're definitely a learning experience. You learn very important business skills like negotiation, communication, um, different aspects of business that can be applied to any other area of, you know money, finances. But
Mm-hmm.
as you mature, I think you realize that you don't have to work with every single brand that reaches out to you, and it's smarter to choose brands to work with that align with who you are as a creator and your business, essentially. So I was reached out by Shein a very long time ago, years ago, as well as Zaffel, and they were kind of just these clothing companies, and they did offer compensation. So sometimes the brands will actually just, offer compensation for something in return, a piece of content in return, whether that be a video, social media posts, and of course, each of those types of content have, details like they have to be this long, or they want it to be featured in this way or in this part of the
Mm-hmm.
video. All those details that I won't get into, but sometimes it's compensation. Sometimes brands will offer you commission on top of the compensation. So based on how many people use a specific code that they grant you, you receive commission from that. And then sometimes you just get people who want to send you things to be featured and not necessarily compensate for it. My advice to anyone out there that is working with brands is do not devalue yourself just to be associated with another name. I wish I knew that before, because just because you might not be very established as a creator, that doesn't mean you have to associate yourself with every single brand that reaches out to you. Just choose the ones that you feel align with your brand and you feel comfortable sharing. I do regret some of the partnerships that I did, looking back, in terms of why did I associate myself with those brands. I didn't know what I was thinking, but at the same time it was a learning experience, and I wouldn't have been able to do the sponsorships now.
Why do you say that you regret those sponsorships? You don't have to name names or anything, though. Feel free to if you want. But like, what was it about it that made you feel like, that felt like it wasn't the best?
So I don't know. Should I say the brand name? I get everyone already talks about it, so I'll say it. Shein. Um, I don't really think working with brands like such are the smartest idea, just because if you are concerned about ethical issues, I'm gonna leave it at that.
Mm,
Lots of people know about there's a lot of ethical issues involved in some of these brands, the wages that they pay their employees, and there's just a lot of ethical issues, or where they're outsourcing the manufacturing. And
I got you. I
so
got you.
that's what I would say. Not so much the directly the people I was communicating with. They were very lovely, but more about the underneath of the brand and the roots of the brand. I don't like to associate myself with brands that I don't feel comfortable with, and now I'm a lot more aware of that, and careful and skeptical when brands reach out to me and I look into their background, because I only want to share what I really truly align with. And after you educate yourself about the ethical issues, we live in a very consumerist society, and a lot of these things are not talked about. So that's why I try my best not to promote things that make me uncomfortable.
hmm Which is great. Like I always tell people this: you should only accept sponsors that feel true to yourself.
Yeah.
And it's. I also want to say I've made this mistake too, where I kind of accepted sponsorships that maybe I wouldn't do anymore. Either maybe the company was sketchy, or even just like it didn't feel aligned with the type of content I was making. Like, if you end up pitching sponsors that aren't I don't know, super relevant to your audience, then people can kind of perceive you as more of a sellout maybe.
That's right.
But yeah, sponsorships can get very odd. But it's also appealing when somebody's like, "Hey, we will pay you
Of
several
course.
$1,000s or $100 or however much it is. Like it's
Yeah,
money." And you're like,
of
"Oh, I'm
course.
just talking to a camera. I make some money." Like, yeah, yeah. Wear some clothes. Cool. I could do that. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, you're so right. And that's a part of it. And I think I don't blame the people who the followers that get frustrated when they see their favorite influencer constantly posting sponsorships. Before, I didn't understand that. Now I understand why it's annoying, because I also watch people, and it's annoying when people, stick in a sponsorship anywhere they can find, and it's not really conducive to the subject of the video or them as a creator. Like, it's completely unrelated, and you're like, oh, okay. Now I have the opportunity to work with brands and individuals that I completely align with, and I'm very happy to be working with. For example, I'm working, like, the little shout out, I'm working with Dr. Albatis. She's a local dentist here in Aurora, Ontario, and through her I'm working with Invisalign. So yeah, like, I think it's a learning experience, and as much as some decisions are not the best, you learn from those potential mistakes, and with that experience, you grow.
Yeah, and I think it also solidifies what you do want. I think in order to know what you want, you do have to make some mistakes, because then you know how
Absolutely.
it feels to do the wrong thing,
That's
which
right.
means you now understand better what it feels like to do the right thing. And it's all a learning experience, a journey, you could say. So yeah, like I'm glad you've kind of felt out the sponsors that you enjoy working with, and that's great. So, can you tell us a little more about your Invisalign sponsorship? And you mentioned one other as well. Like, why do you enjoy working with these brands so much, and how did you come to work with them?
Right. So, for example, when I had the opportunity to work with Dr. Albatish, I really felt aligned with her because, again, as I am an aspiring medical student, medicine and science is something I'm very interested in. So anything that was, in that vicinity of science or medicine or health intrigued me, and I wanted to show that side of me more on social media. So I want to show that I'm multifaceted and I'm not just, into makeup and fashion, but I'm interested in a lot of things and I'm good at a lot of things. I like to think I dabble myself in a lot of different areas. I also don't know if a lot of people know this, but I also run a business where we do sports memorabilia framing. So, sports jersey framing, athletes like Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, all of that. We actually get those jerseys from, people, collectors, sports fanatics with those signatures, and we preserve them by framing the sports memorabilia. So I've had the chance to have a lot of valuable jerseys under my hand. And the catch to
That is
it is that
awesome.
I'm a very non-sporty person. If you were to tell me like, oh, what's going on in the NBA finals right now, I'd be like, um, I have zero clue. I'm very unaware when it comes to sports. I've never been a sporty person. That's kind of ironic considering now I manage a business that's based around sports, but that's how it is.
So that's funny because usually the advice I give people when they're starting a business or a YouTube channel or whatever is to start it around something that you're passionate about and knowledgeable of. But
Yep,
clearly, you've done a 180 from that advice.
yep.
How did you get into that? Like, can you tell us how you kind of built that to where it is now?
Sure. So, yeah, I've never been a sporty person, never watched sports, never been a sports fanatic. I've always loved fitness and all of that and health, but never sports. So, people who took sports seriously growing up, I was like, oh my God. Like, I was very turned off by that. It's just a
It's a
game.
different world.
Two different worlds. People are very attached to teams and players where they literally, connect on an emotional level. And, when the team loses, they feel like they lost. And I've just never gotten into it like that. But the aspect of the business that I was able to incorporate my passion is the business aspect. So the marketing aspect, um, website creating, editing, emails, all of that end of it, bookkeeping, appointments. So my parents actually, they are former art gallery owners, and they would, host these shows with various Canadian artists. And for example, one of them is Trisha Romance. People who are into art will know who she is. And they are semi retired now, but they were very, very affluent before. Um, and so I kind of continued off their business a little bit. They were more always into just artwork, not so much the sports memorabilia, but I saw that there was a vacuum in the market for sports memorabilia framing. I realized that this is a really big market that people are not capitalizing on as much as I think they should. I love, analyzing human psychology, and when I saw how people are fanatics about sports and literally they will go to crazy ends to, go to a game or collect their favorite players jerseys and hockey pucks and pins,
Hmm.
and they, the money just kind of, it doesn't register with them. If they want to do something, it just like goes over their head because they're so focused on what they love, which I respect. But I also saw that, okay, there's a lot of potential here. I incorporated my uh, skills in business, and then I kind of started up SK Artwork is what the business is called. About, it's been a year, I think, actually. It's a relatively new business, but it had a very successful launch, and I'm grateful for all the opportunities I've had to work with different people. Actually, I don't know if I'm allowed to mention this. I won't give a name, but my first customer, I remember she wanted to frame an NFL jersey for her son's birthday. I won't say her name, but she happened to be a colleague of Arlene Dickinson from Dragon's Den. She's from Canada. Arlene Dickinson's a very popular Canadian entrepreneur, and the fact that she was her colleague and that was my first customer, I flipped my shit a little bit.
Wow.
But yeah, so I'm very grateful for that.
So this is skart.com.
Skartwork.ca is my website.
Skartwork.ca.
That's
Gotcha.
right. Yeah.
So, okay, you start this website. You have this idea, like you notice this trend where people in sports, like the super fans, they're just so passionate, and they kind of, if they want something, they're willing to buy it. So you kind of see this trend happening. After you started the website, how did you go about marketing it and getting your first customers?
Honestly, this is really funny considering I'm a social media influencer. I did not use social media whatsoever in my launch of SK Artwork just because I felt like that was not my audience that I wanted to target. And it was more word of mouth. I also, after publishing the website, got a lot of traction from the website. I'm not really sure how that works. I think just if you are I guess if you start a domain with a certain website, if you rank higher on that website compared to the other sites that are registered with that, I don't know what they call it, a website provider, people start, visiting your site. And it was really word of mouth, reference, and more connection based. And then through that, I started getting, a few customers in the beginning. It was, again, something on the side, just a little side hustle because I'm a student, and I was also saving up money for a surgery. So that was how I actually paid for my surgery. I got a septorhinoplasty, for anyone asking. I got my nose done. So that was like $10,000 and the money had to come from somewhere. So I started a little side hustle, and from, one or two customers here and there, they started spreading and word of mouth. Oh, especially the sports community. People are very competitive in the sports community. If someone has a jersey framed and they like how it looks and they come over to their house, they're like, oh, I like that Gretzky jersey. Who did it for you? And then, it kind of becomes a little bit of a competition. Like, oh, I want to get my jersey, my Colorado Avalanche jersey framed too. Like, so I think it was mostly word of mouth and just reference. More than social media. I did not use social media.
Wow, so you did it straight up the old-fashioned way. I mean, obviously, making a website is sort of a new age thing, or new age, I don't know. Maybe it's an internet thing. But then besides that, it was just word of mouth. That's pretty amazing, I will say.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely old school. That's the right term.
Yeah, old school, for sure. So do you do the framing yourself? Do you hire people to do that? Is the business just you? You mentioned the word manage, so I'm guessing there are some people under you.
I'm the owner of the business, so it's a personal business that I own and I run. I don't do any of the physical labor myself. I outsource. I have business partners, I guess you could say, but they're not involved in the business itself, if that makes sense. Like, I manage everything financially. I guess you could say that I'm the CEO. Okay, yeah, that's the right term. I'm the CEO of the company, but I don't have any business partners that are involved in that. I do work with people, and I outsource. I don't do physical labor myself. I'm more in touch with the customers and the clientele, communicating with customers. I process their orders. I schedule in their appointments, and their consultations. Everything, they're dealing with me. It's kind of a one-woman show. But yeah, so I run everything in terms of business aspect.
That's awesome. So do you feel like your kind of early success with YouTube kind of helps prepare you for this business that you've built? It seems like would you say you spend more time on this business than YouTube these days?
Yes, just because it's been very overwhelming, trying to balance studies and work. So I'm kind of trying to bring YouTube back. This is these are my roots. I can't abandon them. But definitely, starting YouTube and social media has helped me a lot in this business venture because I've learned how to talk to people and how to go about negotiation, which is a very big part of business, is negotiating with customers, communicating with customers. You have to put yourself out there. You can't be shy, and I'm naturally a little bit introverted, so it's definitely helped me break out of that. And all of the business terminologies, it's nice to be aware of them before you start a business.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're money savvy and you know how to manage finances, I didn't have an issue with financial management. It wasn't much of a learning curve for me because I already was exposed to making money at an early age. I was already exposed to having my own bank account, setting up all of, the usual finances. So I was lucky in that sense, and that definitely set me up for success later on. If it wasn't for social media, I don't think I would have had success in my current business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's one funny thing about YouTube is it's almost like a generic business that is kind of built around you, and it can kind of teach you a lot of generic skills about how to manage a business that clearly have really come in handy for you.
Mm-hmm.
So would you say like right now, I mean, you just said your main priority is your business and also you're a student, so you're studying. That I know takes tons of time. So, like, do you feel maybe your long-term plan is kind of get a really stable, awesome finances with your business, and then once you've kind of reached a point of comfort, or maybe you're kind of looking to delve into something that feels more new, then maybe you would focus more on YouTube?
That is potentially, yes. I saw an opportunity and I didn't want to pass up that opportunity. That's why I started focusing on my business because I was also dealing with people in person. So I think sometimes we get a little bit disconnected with social media because there's not someone in front of us, even though there's thousands of people. We don't really see them. They're just accounts, so we can get a little bit disconnected. And when you're dealing with people in person, it's a little bit of a different dynamic. It's a different way of, everything is different when it's person in front of you rather than a social media account. So I definitely prioritized my business because I didn't want to pass up the opportunity, and I was I'm still building connections, but I was building connections and it was a stepping stone for me. And starting a business is hard. Starting up a business is not easy, especially when, you don't really have that much knowledge about what you're doing. A lot of people, like you said, you recommend people to start businesses about things that they're very knowledgeable of or passionate about. In my case, that was not happening. Like, I did not choose that. I decided to challenge myself, and I used the business aspects, which I was aware of, but the sports, again, I don't know a rat's ass about sports, and I couldn't care less about who won what or who's got the Stanley Cup for what. But again, so yeah, I would say once that is more established, I'm definitely looking into balancing YouTube more, and it's always a balancing game. No one
I
has to
totally
figure
get
it
it.
out.
Yeah. Like even so like I was a full-time YouTuber for like 6 years and it was great, but now I'm essentially doing what you're doing where I'm focusing more on like my personal business, which for me is freelancing, helping other people build their YouTube channels, just kind of building a client base.
Sure.
And then I feel like once I'm kind of satisfied with that, I will want to keep doing that. But I feel like I'll be more likely to delve back into my YouTube channel again.
Mhm.
Some of it I think, and I'm sure you can relate to this, is just being in front of a camera can be weird. It can be awesome, but it's like it weirdly draining.
Oh,
It's a
yeah.
lot of pressure, I guess. Whereas running your own business, there is obviously pressure, but it's like a different kind of pressure. I don't know, like you
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 hit
don't have
you
to
hit
comb
the
your
nail
hair
on the head.
or What was that?
You hit the nail on the head. Like
Hmm.
exactly. I agree.
Yeah, it's like the pressure of running a YouTube channel. It's like all the pressures of a normal business, plus you need to like be camera ready and have like a smile on your face and blah, blah and like kind of have this camera presence,
Yeah.
and then edit it together and look at your face and hear your voice, and it's like, you know. I think there's a time and a place for it. It can absolutely be awesome. I highly recommend it, hence why this podcast exists.
Mhm.
But sometimes there are other business opportunities out there that you can kind of focus on, make some money in ways that don't involve looking at your own face, and then like you could just kind of go from there, and just sort of treat it as a long game. I think some people they get very obsessed and attracted to like big numbers next to their name.
Yes.
They want fame, recognition, all these things. But if you're just patient and kind of live your life and stabilize your finances, then you might find that you're more comfortable coming back to YouTube at a better time.
Preach.
Hmm.
Absolutely. I That is so true. I experienced burnout as a creator too. Like creator burnout is real. It's hard looking at yourself, editing, coming up with ideas all the time, especially when you're a student. Like you want to balance so many things at once and it gets to a point where you're like, "You know what? I can't do this right now." It's very overwhelming. And again, you can become very critical of yourself. It's unhealthy, and it kind of turns into something that is devoid of why you initially started it, right? If you're very passionate and excited and enthusiastic, and you know the creative juices were flowing in the beginning, and then it, it kind of becomes a job. And then I hate that. I don't like for it to feel like a job or mandatory or a chore. I absolutely hate that because it's a creative thing and I wanted to keep that creativity and preserve that, you know, the organic aspect of it. So I would step away anytime I felt like, okay, now it's getting to a point where I don't like and we're going to take a little break. So I actually took a break from YouTube for almost a year. I think the last time before my cover that I posted was about 10 months ago. So I literally was like, peace. I took a break from social media for in terms of YouTube. I was focusing on my business and school. And then now I'm back, kind of.
Hmm. Well, it sounds like you're just kind of back when you feel like it.
That's right. That's right. Which is not the best thing to do, business wise, because you need to stay consistent, and I have, and that's how I built my initial like follower base. But then you know it's not always easy to keep that consistency, especially if your interests are changing. And for me growing up, again, I started at a really young age. So the things that I was interested in when I was 12 are not the same now that I am 19. And it's hard to transition, you know, whatever it was into whatever you're doing, keeping it modern, keeping it fresh, and still related to what how you started, and for people to not be completely confused and keep it in the same realm. And that was hard to navigate, and that was a lot of the time spent off was trying to figure out how can I rebrand myself now that I'm older. I started as a child, now I'm a teenager or an adult, so my interests are different, my personality is different, the things that I like and don't like are different. And but the thing is, the people who subscribed to me before are still subscribed to me now, and I still have to honor the person that they were subscribed to before. And then I don't want to, what's the right word, you know, assimilate to who I was before, because that's not me either.
Hmm.
And it's a process of transformation that is very difficult. My cat is cleaning himself behind.
Yeah, he sure
Sorry.
is.
Yeah.
Ah, he's adding to the show.
Yeah, so it's a process of transformation that I had to navigate while growing up, which was an additional challenge. But, you know, I don't regret anything.
Hmm. Well, that's smart because, like, if you don't really explore and deal with your changing self, then you end up kind of stagnating. I remember I was watching an interview with Rob Lowe, I believe, the actor, and he said something to the effect of, like, if you get famous,
Yes, you get
your
stuck at that
personality
age.
Yeah, you get stuck at that age forever. So if you get famous at 20, when you're 50, you still act like a 20-year-old because all this attention, you were essentially given all of this positive attention uh, for this version of you. And then people can get really afraid to let go of that version of themselves.
Mhm.
But if you stick to it too long, one, it's not going to work out for you anyway. Like
Mhm.
people are going to sense that something's off here. There's a lack of authenticity. There's a stagnation, something like that. And then two, you're going to drive yourself crazy. I mean, you're going to like try to be this person and show up in front of the camera and dance this monkey dance that is not yourself. So I think the fact that you're playing the I don't even want to say the long game here. I just mean like you seem balanced, like you're not obsessed with numbers. I think gonna that's gonna help you in life in general. But even I would say in the long run, it may help your channel. Because yeah, like I took 2 years off my channel basically. Where I think I posted about 4 videos in 2 years.
Mhm.
And during that time, I was kind of doing what you were doing, kind of exploring myself and figuring out like how I changed. I was in my late 20s when I did that. But also, I had changed a lot since I had started making videos, and there was kind of an identity crisis there of who am I? There's
Oh,
this audience. Do I
keyword
appeal to them?
keyword is identity crisis.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Sorry.
yeah, it's weird. But I'm glad you have this business that doesn't involve YouTube. I think or it's like more behind the scenes, like I'm on YouTube with my business, but I'm not featured.
Mhm.
Except for this podcast. That's a little different, but still I'm
It's
not
more
like making a
conservative.
video.
That's why you feel comfortable with it. It's not so much, like it's more conservative, the nature of the podcast.
Yes, yes. And it's also like the videos I was making were very editing intensive, funny, informative. I don't know. There was just a lot of pressure to be perfect every second.
Mhm.
Whereas this is like a conversation, so
Yes,
it's a little more
natural.
free flowing. Yes,
Yes.
natural, for sure.
Exactly.
Hmm.
No, identity crisis is a keyword that you use. With social media, you can definitely fall into a little bit of an identity crisis, and you have to be careful. Like people become narcissistic as a result of social media, and I've always hated that aspect of it because I don't like people who have a stick up their ass. Just be yourself, like down to earth. And sometimes I would check myself where I'm like, okay, I don't like how I'm feeling about myself right now. I might have a stick up my ass, so we have to work on that. And so I would like pull myself away. I just tried to always humble myself, keep myself down to earth and grounded. And the business was a really big part of keeping myself grounded because I was dealing with people and human interaction. So it kept me grounded. It kept me, in touch with reality. Sometimes when you're immersed in social media, it's another world and you feel a little bit in the clouds and disconnected from the real world. So it was a healthy balance that I created during COVID. So I thank you, COVID-19, for prompting me to start my business. I started my business in COVID, ironically.
Wow. So when everybody was like, COVID is ruining me, everything is horrible, you were like, nah, I'm about to thrive. I'm
Exactly.
building
I'm
this.
about to capitalize on this right now. Like, it's hard to start a business regardless, but to start up a business when there's a huge economic crash happening, the whole world is dying, and there's a pandemic is an interesting experience. But again, it was a learning experience, and I proved to myself through that startup where, oh my God, like I did that. Good for me. If I was able to start up a successful business in COVID, when a lot of people were going out of business or businesses were experiencing a record low, to start a business, a completely new business during that time and have it be successful. I mean, I'm not tooting my own horn, but like people need to start giving themselves more credit. That's why I'm talking in this way. Like I've always had a hard time crediting myself. Don't be afraid to credit yourself. Like you're putting in all this hard work and you deserve to recognize, your hard work, your persistence and accept that um we all have strengths and weaknesses, and just how we criticize or we're very critical of our weaknesses, we also have to celebrate our strengths, and that's how we move forward. So that's also been a big learning experience for me through all of this is Like, manifest your highest self and show up as them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. Absolutely. So, do you feel like you made decisions differently because it was the pandemic, or like you just were kind of doing what you would have already done?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it's a mix of both. I wanted to continue what I was doing from before and keep a certain momentum of social media and YouTube, but at the same time, I was developing into a new person and also maturing, growing. Then you add a pandemic on top of that. So I kind of experienced the most critical years of being a teenager, like 16, 17, 18, during a pandemic. So stuck at home, not really able to socialize in the same way that, my parents would have when they were 18 or 17. I'm still stuck at 17 a little bit, but
Aren't we all?
we're all stuck at 17.
High
Um,
school never ends, as they say.
literally. But I don't know, like, I think as a result of the pandemic and being stuck inside a little bit, I was forced to look at myself in the mirror and be like, okay, what do we want to do here? Do we just want to stay where we are, or we want to upgrade? Like, I kind of want to be a different person when the pandemic is over. I don't. Let's upgrade. So that's what I did. And I don't mean to say that sarcastically, but like literally, just improving yourself as an individual, developing new things, developing a business, working on your fitness, whatever. So many people did different things during COVID. They were focusing on themselves, reading, cooking, cleaning, organizing. Lots of people started YouTube channels, podcasts. It was a creative time. Like, I'm not gonna lie. For creatives like myself, I took advantage of that time that was more isolated, and I excel in isolation, as a lot of us do who are in social media. So no, I took advantage of it. I took the opportunity, and I said, why not? Let's do something productive instead of sulking.
Hmm. Which is great. I think people during the pandemic usually went one of two ways. It felt like their whole life got turned upside down, and the pandemic is kind of like all they talk about. There's definitely people who, I don't know, it's like they can't talk about anything but the pandemic and the news and all the bad things. But then there's other people where you kind of just used it as a time to self-reflect and to ask yourself what you really want, and maybe, hey, maybe it's time to really do this thing that I've been wanting to do.
That's
And
right.
I'm glad that you made that choice. I mean, clearly it's working out for you. And then also, it's just, I mean, it's a better choice. I don't know, whenever people can't get away from the negative news cycles or whatever, it seems like it's corrupting them or something.
Yes,
And I think it's wise to not pay too much attention.
I completely agree with that. I always try to stay positive. The pandemic, even though I'm creative and I'm an introvert, so I excelled and I thrived in that situation. It was still hard. It's hard to, for your routine to be completely changed, ruined, basically. You only see your best friends or even your family members once in a blue moon. It affects your mental health a lot. I went through a lot of anxiety, so um, I can't say that it's all positive. All of us dealt with something during that time. It was very nerve wracking. But now we come out as a different person, and yeah, it's the growth, the transformation. Everyone experienced that in some ways, other people more negatively than others, but I think with everything there's pros and cons, and there's always a positive in something negative. I've always believed in that. So even though COVID was really negative in a lot of ways, people improved themselves and they started focusing on who they want to be, what they want to do, because they realized, oh, you know what? Time is short. People are dying. I'm not gonna care what other people think of what I'm doing. I'm gonna do what I want and what I love because it makes me happy. And what if it's successful? What if it works out? You don't know until you try, right?
Hmm. Right on. Yeah, great advice. Words to live by. Totally agree. So we've hit the hour mark. 60 minutes
Wow.
flew by
Okay.
here.
Wow. We've been talking for a long time.
Yeah, it's been great. So why don't you tell people like where they can find you? I know we've already talked about it, but it's always good to remind people.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for the the plug opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So they can follow me on Instagram. I'm Sabrina Koon on Instagram. On YouTube, I'm Sabrina Koon. Koon is spelled Koun. Sabrina, everyone knows how to spell Sabrina. And if I have any sports fans listening and you've got some signed memorabilia that you'd like to frame and hang up on your wall, please visit my website at skartwork.ca, and then you can communicate with me directly through email or through the website, and we'd love to work with you. I also just came out with a cover, a Bill Withers cover. It's my first singing cover that I've posted on social media professionally, I guess, more professionally. So if you could check that out, I'd appreciate it. And all the support is very much appreciated, and I'm grateful for this opportunity as well.
Mm-hmm. Right on. Well said. And there you go, everybody. Go check her out. Yeah, you will not be disappointed. And with that, this is a wrap. I will see you, sweet viewer, in the next one. Make sure to like and subscribe, all that good stuff. And thanks again, Sabrina.
Thank you, Grant.